The legend of Kuchisake Onna. This is the chilling tale of a female ghost who abducts children and cuts their mouths open with a pair of enormous scissors. The events unfold in Japan, where an entire town is gripped by fear of a spirit known as Kuchisake Onna. Word of the horrifying story spreads rapidly, becoming the subject of nearly every conversation, especially among the local children. As the legend goes, Kuchisake Onna appears as a woman in a white mask, worn to hide the grotesque gash carved across her mouth, and dressed in a cream-colored leather coat. Whenever she crosses paths with someone, she poses a single question: "Am I beautiful?" She then pulls off her mask, exposing a mouth ripped open from ear to ear. Rumor claims she snatches children, hauls them off to her lair, and slits their mouths with the scissors she carries everywhere. Locals also say she materializes in a nearby park each day at exactly 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Eager to learn whether the stories are true, 3 young boys conceal themselves close by and keep a careful eye on the park. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, a little girl named Mika endures a heartbreaking existence. Day after day, she bears the brunt of her mother's rage, a woman who still resents her husband for deserting the family and leaving them drowning in debt. Because of the relentless abuse, Mika's mouth is bruised and her body is marked with painful wounds. At the local school, a teacher named Yamashita spots 3 of her students still talking after class and urges them to get home before dark. Not long after, she climbs to the school rooftop to take in the evening sunset. In another part of the building, a teacher named Matsuzaki is unsettled when he notices a drawing of Kuchisake left on the chalkboard by his students. Just as he moves to wipe it away, a violent earthquake rocks the town, throwing everyone into panic. In that very instant, Matsuzaki starts to hear eerie whispers that freeze him with dread. At the same time, inside a house abandoned for years, a sealed wardrobe groans open by itself, and from within, the real Kuchisake Onna finally steps out. When the tremors fade, the 3 boys are still stationed at the park. With 5 o'clock long past and no sign of the ghost, they begin to doubt the legend. Yet the moment they lower their guard, Kuchisake appears directly behind them and seizes one of the boys. The next day, as news of the boy's disappearance sends shockwaves through the town, the school assembles every student in the auditorium. Among the crowd, Mika wears a white mask to hide the bruises around her mouth. Rather than earning sympathy, she becomes the target of several girls who tauntingly call her Kuchisake Onna. Soon after, the principal announces a new set of safety measures. From now on, classes will end earlier, and students must travel home in groups, accompanied by a parent or teacher. Children are also forbidden from leaving home without permission or speaking to strangers, since the school suspects a kidnapper is using the legend of Kuchisake Onna to lure unsuspecting victims. Back in the classroom, the same group of girls resumes tormenting Mika, again mocking her with the ghost's name. Her best friend, Natsuki, quickly steps forward to defend her, but one of the bullies rips Mika's mask off, revealing the painful bruises around her mouth to the entire class. After school, the students are split into groups and walked home by teachers and parents. As Natsuki is greeted warmly by both of her parents, Mika watches in silence, quietly longing for a family like that. Eventually, every child has been collected except Mika. Yamashita begins to wonder why no one has come for her, until at last Mika's mother, Sasaki, arrives. She apologizes for the delay, explaining that work had kept her busy, and tells Mika to come home. But Mika refuses, insisting she'll go on her own. Sensing tension between mother and daughter, Yamashita offers to take Mika home herself, words that make Sasaki bristle with barely contained fury. Soon after, Yamashita gently asks Mika to share what has been going on. Mika slowly lifts her mask, revealing not only the bruises around her mouth, but countless others covering nearly her whole body. Seeing the terrible injuries, Yamashita understands that Mika has been abused by her own mother. Through tears, Mika confesses that she believes her mother no longer loves her. But Yamashita, a mother herself, immediately scolds her, insisting she must never say such a thing. For in her view, No mother could ever fail to love her own child. Feeling betrayed by the very person she hoped would believe her, Mika suddenly bolts. Yamashita races after her, but stops dead in her tracks when the real Kuchisake Onna appears before her. Paralyzed with terror, Yamashita can only watch helplessly as the monstrous figure carries Mika off and vanishes, leaving her unable to move a muscle. Shortly afterward, the police arrive and launch an investigation, questioning Yamashita about everything that just happened. She insists that Mika was taken by Kuchisake Onna herself, but the officers brush her account aside, convinced the ghost is nothing more than an urban legend. Not long after, Sasaki arrives in tears, having learned of her daughter's disappearance. Watching the grieving mother break down, Yamashita is overwhelmed with guilt, certain she failed to protect her student. Once home, Yamashita is consumed by remorse over Mika's disappearance. The ordeal reminds her of her own daughter, so she works up the courage to call her ex-husband, hoping to speak with the girl. He tells her their daughter still isn't ready to talk. It's then revealed that, before their divorce, Yamashita often unleashed her frustrations on her daughter and treated her cruelly. Though she truly loved her child, her regret came far too late. The emotional wounds ran so deep that her daughter still refuses to see or even speak to her. Eventually, Yamashita drifts off to sleep, only to be tormented by a nightmare in which her daughter is abducted by Kuchisake Onna. The following day, Sasaki is seen with the police. When an officer urges her to rest, she refuses to sleep and dissolves into tears. Tortured by guilt and convinced none of this would have happened had she shown Mika more love and kindness. Meanwhile, the disappearances of Mika and the young boy plunge the entire town into chaos and quickly become national news. Officers are deployed across the city to search for the missing children, and a description of the suspect is released publicly in hopes of finding both victims as soon as possible. Elsewhere, a young girl named Rei and her little sibling watch the news on television. Noticing their mother wearing a face mask, they jokingly call her Kuchisake Onna. Their mother explains she's only wearing it because she has a bad cough and doesn't want to infect them. She then leaves the house to buy medicine. Meanwhile, Natsuki takes it upon herself to help find Mika by handing out missing person flyers. Before long, the same group of girls who once bullied Mika approaches her. Ashamed of how they treated her, they decide to join the search as well. Back at the school, Matsusaki shows Yamashita an old photograph of a mysterious woman. Yamashita is stunned. The woman bears an uncanny resemblance to the Kuchisake Onna who took Mika. Just then, Matsusaki hears the eerie whispers again. Based on everything he's experienced, he's certain the whispers signal that Kuchisake Onna has returned in search of a new victim. Without a moment's hesitation, he rushes toward the spot he believes will be the site of the next abduction. At first, he refuses to let Yamashita come, fearing for her safety, but seeing how determined she is to atone for failing Mika, he finally agrees to let her join him. Along the way, he explains that ever since Kuchisake Onna's terror began, he has heard the whispers each time she is about to appear. And strangely, whenever they echo in his ears, another child is taken. Meanwhile, a young boy named Masatoshi watches a news report about Kuchisake Onna. Ever since the figure first surfaced, he has become obsessed with the legend, recording every new detail in a notebook. This time he uncovers another chilling rumor, that Kuchisake Onna is immortal, and that her hideout is a red-roofed house perched atop a hill. Suddenly his doorbell rings. When he answers, he finds Matsuzaki and Yamashita, who have come to warn and protect him. Matsuzaki's suspicion proves correct. Kuchisake Onna is already inside the house and moves at once to seize Masatoshi. The instant Matsuzaki comes face to face with the terrifying entity, she fixes her gaze on him and asks, "Am I beautiful?" The question leaves him so shaken that he freezes in place. Seeing her partner in danger, Yamashita grabs a kitchen knife and stabs Kuchisake, dropping the creature to the ground. But just as they think it's over, the body reverts to that of an ordinary woman, revealing, to their horror, that it's Rei's mother, who had gone out earlier to buy medicine. It becomes clear that Kuchisake Onna is a malevolent spirit capable of possessing women's bodies and using them to abduct children throughout the town. Realizing she has just killed an innocent woman, Yamashita is crushed by guilt. Afterward, Matsuzaki and Yamashita escort Masatoshi to the nearest police station to keep him safe. Before they part, Masatoshi hands them his notebook containing everything he's learned about Kuchisake Onna. The pair then visit Rei's home to check on the two children, only to find Rei and her younger sibling still waiting for their mother to return, unaware that she has died. Watching the children wait so hopefully deepens Yamashita's guilt, believing she has robbed them of their mother. At the time, neither she nor Matsuzaki realizes that Kuchisake Onna can leap from one woman's body to another, nor that, had Yamashita not stopped her, countless more innocent people would have fallen victim. Soon after, Matsuzaki reveals a shocking truth. The mysterious woman in the photograph is his own mother, Taiko. 30 years earlier, Taiko had 3 children, one of whom was Matsuzaki. Throughout his childhood, she repeatedly abused and beat all 3 until, one by one, they fled. Not long after, Taiko vanished, leaving Matsuzaki alone until he was placed in an orphanage. He admits he remembers little of his childhood because the trauma was too much to bear. It was around that time that the legend of Kuchisake Onna first began spreading through the town. After confronting the entity himself, Matsuzaki has become convinced it is somehow tied to his mother. He concludes that, with its previous host dead, Kuchisake is likely hunting for another woman's body to inhabit. Suddenly, Matsuzaki hears the eerie whispers yet again, the same ones that always herald Kuchisake's arrival. Wasting no time, he and Yamashita rush toward the sound. Elsewhere, Natsuki is distributing missing person posters alongside her mother. As they pass through a nearby park, Natsuki's mother is abruptly possessed by Kuchisake Onna, and moments later, Natsuki becomes the entity's next victim. When Matsuzaki and Yamashita reach the park, they find it completely empty. Then the whispers echo in Matsuzaki's ears once more, and the two immediately follow the sound. Meanwhile, Kuchisake Onna carries Natsuki to a hidden room inside an abandoned house that serves as her lair, the same place where she has been holding Mika captive, along with the young boy who was her very first victim. Without a trace of mercy, she slices Natsuki's mouth open until it matches her own, then brutally kills the young boy with her ever-present scissors. She carries the boy's body away, leaving the 2 girls trapped inside. Witnessing the horror, Mika can only weep in terror. Once the room falls silent, she begins working to cut the ropes binding her hands, using a broken shard of ceramic lying nearby. Elsewhere, Kuchisake Onna dumps the boy's body in a parking lot. Before long, an elderly man discovers the corpse and reports it to the police, who quickly arrive and begin investigating. As night falls, Natsuki's father is driving 3 of her friends home when he notices someone wandering alone through a nearby park. Drawing closer, he realizes it's Natsuki, deliberately released by Kuchisake Onna to spread fear through the town. Her mouth has been grotesquely slit open, making her look exactly like the ghost herself, and her 3 friends are left utterly horrified by her appearance. Soon, word that Natsuki has been found reaches Matsuzaki and Yamashita. They study Masatoshi's notebook, which holds everything he gathered about Kuchisake Onna. According to his notes, the victims are believed to be held inside a red-roofed house atop a hill. The moment Matsuzaki hears this, he recognizes it instantly as the house where he grew up. Without delay, he and Yamashita set off for it. Meanwhile, unable to endure waiting for police updates any longer, Sasaki decides to search for Mika herself. She visits one of Mika's friends and asks whether the child knows where her daughter might be. The girl tells her that Kuchisake Onna is holding Mika in a red-roofed house on top of a hill, and Sasaki immediately races toward it. Matsuzaki and Yamashita finally arrive at the red-roofed house believed to be the ghost's hideout. They enter without hesitation and begin searching for Mika. As they move through one of the rooms, Matsuzaki's eyes land on an old wardrobe with its doors flung wide open, and the sight instantly resurrects the traumatic memories he has spent decades trying to bury. 30 years earlier, Matsuzaki lived in that very house with his mother and 2 siblings. One day, his mother, Taiko, was possessed by a malevolent entity that dwelled within the hill where they lived. From that point on, she steadily lost control of herself and abused all 3 of her children again and again. Eventually, both of Matsuzaki's siblings were killed by their own mother, yet deep down, Taiko remained aware, loathing herself for being powerless against the entity. Realizing it was only a matter of time before it possessed her once more and forced her to kill Matsuzaki too, she begged him to end her life by beheading her with a knife. But Matsuzaki was only a child and couldn't bring himself to do it. When the entity seized control of Taiko again, he had no choice but to fight back. Tragically, his first strike merely tore her mouth open from one side of her face to the other. Desperate to survive, he stabbed her repeatedly until she died. Overcome by fear and panic, he couldn't fulfill her final wish to sever her head. Instead, he hid her body inside the wardrobe. From that day on, Taiko's ghastly appearance, with its slit mouth, became the origin of the legend of Kuchisake Onna. When the earthquake struck earlier in the story, the wardrobe was forced open, allowing the evil entity to escape once again. Snapping back to the present, Matsuzaki immediately searches the wardrobe, but Taiko's body is gone. Instead, he finds a narrow passage leading to a hidden underground chamber, and from within it he hears Mika crying out for help. He and Yamashita hurry inside. Yamashita quickly frees Mika, who is fortunately still alive with only minor injuries. Matsuzaki, however, is horrified to discover 2 human skeletons in one corner of the chamber. Looking closer, he realizes they are the remains of his 2 siblings, missing for the past 30 years. Understanding that the house is no longer safe, Matsuzaki tells Yamashita and Mika they need to leave at once. But after only a few steps from the chamber, he hears the eerie whispers again, the same ones that always signal Kuchisake Onna's arrival. Right on cue, the terrifying entity appears and launches a savage attack. She stabs Matsuzaki, then slices through the tendon in his ankle with her scissors, sending him crashing to the floor, unable to stand. Seeing him gravely wounded, Yamashita grabs Mika and tries to flee. But the old house seems to have twisted into a labyrinth. No matter how hard they search, they can't find a way out. Exploiting their confusion, Kuchisake Onna relentlessly pursues them and cuts off their escape. Moments later, Mika is forced back into the underground chamber, where Kuchisake Onna savagely beats Matsuzaki for trying to rescue her captives. Once she's certain he can no longer fight back, she turns to Mika, preparing to kill her next. Meanwhile, Sasaki finally reaches the red-roofed house where Mika is believed to be held. Though terrified by the bloodstains throughout the house, she presses on in search of her daughter. Before long, she finds Yamashita unconscious and quickly wakes her. Once Yamashita comes to, she snatches a knife off the floor while Sasaki rushes into the underground chamber to find Mika. Down below, Kuchisake Onna is about to finish off the helpless Matsuzaki. But at that very moment, Yamashita charges in and stabs the entity, sending it crashing to the ground. Seizing the chance, Matsuzaki painfully drags himself toward the knife. He knows the only way to end the nightmare is to behead the body Kuchisake Onna currently inhabits before the spirit can flee and possess another host. But he's too late. Just before he can strike, the body reverts to Natsuki's mother, proof that the spirit has already abandoned it and found a new host, Sasaki. In an instant, Sasaki transforms into Kuchisake Onna and attacks them once more. Despite his severe injuries, Matsuzaki refuses to surrender. He clings to Kuchisake's back and orders Yamashita to get Mika out of the house while he confronts the spirit alone. After a fierce struggle, he finally manages to kill the possessed body by beheading it. But moments later, another powerful earthquake shakes the house, collapsing the underground chamber and burying both Matsuzaki and Sasaki beneath the rubble. The next morning, the bodies of Matsuzaki and Sasaki are pulled from the collapsed chamber. Yet the nightmare is far from over. The spirit of Kuchisake Onna still lives, At last, the truth is revealed. Kuchisake Onna was never truly Taiko. She was a malevolent entity that had possessed Taiko decades earlier, stripping her of control and driving her to abuse and even murder her own children. When Matsuzaki killed Taiko, the entity did not perish with her. Instead, it survived by drifting from one woman's body to the next in search of fresh victims. Though it constantly changed hosts, the spirit always chose to appear in Taiko's form, with her grotesquely slit mouth, because the legend of Kuchisake Onna was born from the tragedy that befell Taiko. From then on, the entity kept appearing as her, using that horrifying visage to spread terror wherever it went. Once everything was finally over, Yamashita rescued Mika and brought her safely out of the red-roofed house. Later that afternoon, she was at last given the chance to reunite with her own daughter. Standing before her ex-husband and her child, Yamashita sincerely apologized for all the pain she had caused, admitting that she had often taken out her frustrations on her daughter and left her with deep emotional scars. After everything she had endured, she finally understood how precious a child truly is, and she deeply regretted her mistakes. Fortunately, her daughter accepted the apology, and the two shared an emotional embrace. But their happiness was short-lived. Not long after their reunion, Yamashita suddenly began to cough. Moments later, her face slowly twisted into the terrifying visage of Kuchisake Onna. It became clear that the evil spirit had never truly been destroyed, and had now chosen Yamashita as its newest host. And with that, the story comes to an end.